right now. Okay, and I see some familiar faces, and so it's great to see you all. I'm gonna try to share my screen. Oh, 1 second. That's not what I need. 1 second, guys. Here we go. Okay. All right, thumbs up if you can see the screen or my PowerPoint. Okay, awesome. Well, if you haven't attended a class with me today, welcome. And if you have, it's great to see you again. My name is Kelsey Carpenter, and my position at CPCB is the Health Education Specialist. So I do all of these nutrition classes for parents, and I also have some for kids. And so it's great to see you all. As you know, today's class is all about sugar. So just as the title says. So I'd love to hear from you. Would anyone like to unmute and let me know specifically what you're wanting to learn today?
I guess we're just trying to figure out some different snacks that he'll eat that aren't processed, because our whole family is getting ready to start 75 hard, and I feel like he's not going to eat anything while we're doing it. So
yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, we'll more go through the things not to eat. And then if you're looking for specific snack ideas, I actually have a healthy snacking class coming up that might be even more kind of down the lane that you're looking for. But we'll definitely, hopefully, and if you have specific questions, feel free. So just so everyone knows, if you have questions throughout, honestly, the best way to do it is to just unmute, and that's fine to interrupt me. You can also try raising your virtual hand. I can see that pretty well. And I'll leave a time for questions at the end if you have like specific things you want to know about. Does that sound good? Okay, great. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So let's talk a little bit about sugar. So the reason that I have a whole class dedicated to it is because it's a hot topic, right? And we hear a lot of negatives around sugar. So we're going to go through both the positive and the negatives. But we tend to want sugar in a lot of scenarios. And so here are some of the things. First, when we feel down, so if we feel depressed or if we feel sad, when we eat sugar, we actually get a serotonin response to that, which means that's our feel-good hormone. So scientifically, sugar does make us feel better. And so when we feel down, we tend to crave sugar. When we need a pick-me-up, so does anyone, if you're feeling tired, does anyone crave sugar? I know I do. And you might be thinking like coffee, but it's probably the sugar from the coffee or the caffeine from the coffee. What about when we're bored? Does anyone crave sugar when you're bored? I do. When we're celebrating something. So oftentimes in our culture and just around the world, when we're celebrating things like holidays, birthdays, it's associated with dessert and with cake and with sugary things. And that's a way we celebrate and to make the day special. So we'll talk about that. And also just when we need something sweet. So I don't know about you, but I actually have certain times of the day where I have found that I crave something. For me, it's like 3 or 4 in the afternoon where I crave something. You also like late time, like after dinner, I tend to crave sweet things. So it's just good to know these things. And when you are craving something sweet, to think to yourself, what emotion are you feeling, right? And so it's good for us to notice, and this brings us to our next slide, if we are hungry for the physical hunger. So if our stomach is rumbling, if we're actually needing food for a caloric need, or if we're eating for the emotional side of it, for feeling good, right? And so we're not always eating just because we need to eat. And so just kind of realizing when it's one or the other. Does that make sense so far? Cool. So let's talk about how sugar affects our bodies. So we'll go over the recommendations for sugar in a couple slides, but most of us, if not all of us, are eating more sugar than we need. And so kind of how it works is when we're eating more sugar than we need, The excess sugar is stored as glycogen in the body, just a fancy word, glycogen. But we only have a set number of glycogen stores in our body. It's not unlimited. And so when those stores get full, that excess sugar is then turned to fat by the body. All right, so that can explain why when we eat more sugar than we need, that leads to weight gain. Okay, does that make sense to everyone? And we'll go through it a little bit more. Questions so far? No? Okay. All right, so does anyone struggle with diabetes, have pre-diabetes? Does diabetes run in your family? Just like a raise of hands. It runs in my family. My mom has diabetes. Yeah, so it's very common. There's two types of diabetes. So there's type 1 and type 2, and they're both very different. So type 1 is an autoimmune disease. And this typically onsets in childhood. Lately, we've seen a lot of, well, not a lot, but we have seen people get diagnosed as adults. It's more rare, but that can happen. But today we're specifically going to talk about type 2 diabetes, because this is the diabetes that can develop based on how we eat and our physical exercise, right? So this is something that we can make happen. It's not just merely genetics. So, and this first part is more of the science behind it. I just want to make sure everyone is on the same page. But pretty much what happens here is this is when the body stops responding correctly to the sugar in our body. So has anyone heard of insulin before? Yeah, so insulin is the hormone that is released when our blood sugar is really high. And what it does is it lowers our blood sugar, and that's what's supposed to happen. What happens in diabetes, though, is insulin is not getting released. And so instead of insulin being released and it lowering our blood sugar, no insulin is being released. And so our blood sugar remains really high and it peaks and it stays high. And that is what causes adverse health consequences, right? That is the problem. So what we want to happen is we want the blood in our or our sugar in our blood to go into our cells, but instead it just stays in the blood. And that's what causes diabetes. And we all know the problems with diabetes. This is not something we want. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. Does anyone have specific questions about that? Okay. Yeah, and I guess another visual, and because it's a little hard to explain, would be this is the reason how weight gain can negatively affect or can cause diabetes. So if you think about a cell, and insulin is the key to the cell, okay? So insulin is the key. And when insulin is working correctly, it opens the door to the cell and the sugar rushes into the cell. And that's what we want. Well, when we gain weight, then fat actually covers if you think about like the door to the cell, it's covering the door. And so insulin can't get to the key. It can't open the door. And so instead, it just stays in the blood. So that is how when we're overweight, that can make diabetes worse. Does that make sense? Just for a little visual, if you think of like insulin as the key to the cell. Okay, great. So do we need sugar? I don't want this to be the doom and gloom on sugar, because we do actually need sugar. Glucose, so glucose is a fancy word for sugar, same thing though. So I'll be using those words interchangeably. But glucose is what our brain prefers. That's our fuel source. That's what we work best on. Has anyone heard of the ketone diet? Yeah. So pretty much what happens in this diet is we're making our brain go into starvation mode because we are using fat instead of sugar as our fuel source. And this is not preferred because we can't use the fuel as effectively. And so the main moral of this story is that we need some sugar. We need it in moderation, but it actually contributes to our quality of life. And it's actually okay as long as we're within the recommendations, because we work best off of sugar. That's how we think best. That's how we perform at our best. Okay, so sugar is not all bad. And the main thing is I don't want anyone after this to feel like they have to eliminate any foods, because is that realistic? Is that realistic to say you're never going to eat a cookie again? It's not. It's not realistic for me anyways. And so we're going to talk about more so what things we need to be eating more of rather than the things we need to eliminate, because we don't need to eliminate anything. We can have everything sometimes, but we just don't want to have everything all the time. So, all right. So, and I feel like every nutritionist says this, but we always say, as long as you eat it in moderation, right? But what does that really mean? So let's talk about that. So pretty much the definition of eating something in moderation is to avoid excessive amounts of it, okay? So let's talk about our recommendations. So we're going off the American Heart Association, and this is what they recommend the maximum amount of sugars is that you need per day in your diet, all right? So it's a little different between men and women. Men can have a little more. They can have 36 grams or 9 teaspoons a day. And women, our recommendation is 25 grams or 6 teaspoons a day. Think about that. Is that more or less than you would have thought? Anyone? For me, it's a lot less, right? That's pretty low. So if you think about it, I mean, sometimes like your yogurt in the morning might have more than 25 grams, and that's more than you need for the entire day. So we're going to talk about that, but this is what we're shooting for, but we might not be there yet, and we might not get there for a while, and that's okay. So this class is hopefully will help you, guide you in that direction by making small practical changes to your lifestyle. But don't feel like you need to get here right away, because very few people are here, and even little changes can make a big difference, all right? So the average American consumes 17 teaspoons of sugar every day. So if you think about that, that's double the limit for men and triple the limit for women. And most of our sugar does come from sugary drinks. So I'm not just talking about soda, even though soda is a big one, but I'm talking about soda. I'm talking about juice, sports drinks, Powerade, Gatorade. I'm talking about all of that stuff. I'm talking about teas, coffees. So anything that has added sugar. So most of our sugar comes from sugary drinks. So we're going to do an exercise at the end of the class to really give you a visual on how much sugar is in the drinks that you're drinking. All right. So we all know that sugar is in things like cakes and cookies and sodas, but there's also some things that we don't often think about. So I just wanted to highlight those. Milk has 13 grams of sugar every cup. Now, we're going to talk about the difference between added and natural. This is a natural type of sugar. So don't feel like you need to cut milk out of your diet. In fact, milk is really important, especially for your kids. But it's just good to know that, especially if you're on the cusp of diabetes or if you are genetically predisposed to diabetes. It's just good to know. Also, we'll talk about this, but choosing unflavored dairy products is a really easy way to cut down on your sugar. So vanilla almond milk has 13 grams of sugar, while unsweetened almond milk has zero added sugar. That's a big difference. So anytime we can choose like an unflavored version or like a plain yogurt is a really easy choice to make, and you're cutting your sugar by a lot. Granola bars, those have sugar. So one chewy chocolate chip granola bar has 7. We know that breakfast cereal does. Some are better than others. We want to choose the ones with the least amount of added sugar as possible. Our salad dressing, our condiments, ketchup, things like that, things that we don't often think about, those have sugar. And this just blows my mind. So I just looked at a French vanilla yogurt, just a Yoplait, because I figured that was kind of common. And that had 20 grams of added sugar. So from our previous slide, we learned that for women, our limit for the day should be 25. So that means if we have this yogurt, then we have 5 grams to go through the rest of our day. So a lot of today, I would just want you to start thinking about what's worth it to you, right? So for me, for added sugar, I would much rather honestly eat a cookie than I would drink a soda. But maybe it's the opposite for you. You're just choosing what is worth it to you. And if it's not worth it, not choosing to indulge in it. And so also sometimes we need to view yogurt in a different way, more of a dessert than a breakfast food. There are great yogurts though that have a lot less than this, but just being aware of that and looking up the nutrition facts label. All right. Does this blow anyone's mind? Is it more than you thought? Yeah. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about our children and sugar. Today's class is mostly about you all and your health as an adult, but I just wanted to bring this up. Just like us, kids also are having more sugar than they need. They're actually having more than us, 19 teaspoons daily on average. Again, theirs are largely coming from beverages as well as desserts. So kind of our 3 recommendations for kids. First is that children over the age of 2 should consume no more than, and I can't see, does anyone see that number?
6 teaspoons.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Mine's like cut off. Of sugar per day. And then also children should not consume more than 1 8-ounce sugar sweetened beverage per week. And that includes juice. Okay, so when we are looking at juices, choosing ones that are 100% juice are the best options, but that's just something good to know. And then just overall, children under the age of 2 should avoid added sugars as much as possible. So I keep using that word added sugars, right? So we'll go through in a little bit the difference between added and natural, because when I'm talking about these recommendations, I'm talking about added sugar, because that's really what we're focusing on. That's what needs to be reduced. So how much sugar is too much? What's recommended is that no more than 10% of our daily calories should come from added sugar. So if you're eating 2,000 calories a day, which is normal for like a healthy adult, no more than 200 calories should come from added sugars, all right? So just to give you an idea, and maybe one day you figure it out. That way you kind of know where you are. And this does not include things like natural sugars. So let's talk about that. So like I said, there's added and natural. Not all sugars are created equal. So when I'm talking about natural sugars, like things that come from a beet or an apple, yes, those contain sugar, but they also contain water, fat, protein, fiber. All of those things are really good things. And so sugar is okay, more okay in that scenario, because it's encompassing everything else. The problem is when we take sugar out of the context, now all that's left is the sweetness and the calories, and that is added sugar. Does that make sense? So I would never tell someone to stop eating fruit, even though fruit has sugar, but because it has so many other really important things that we need. Added sugar is just the sugar at that point, and so that is what we're trying to reduce. Questions? Does that make sense? Okay, so the cool thing is now on the nutrition facts label, it used to just have a line for total sugars. And now they also have to have a line right under it that says added sugar. That way we can see how much of the sugar is natural and how much is not. So like, let's like do an example. So if your nutrition facts label says it has 20 grams of sugar, total sugar, and then under it, it says added sugar 20 grams. Well, that shows us then that that product, all of the sugar is added. So would that be good or bad? It would be bad, right? Because we want natural sugar. Yeah, but then so then on the other hand though, if it said our total sugars was 20 grams and our added sugars was 3, that shows us then that the majority of those sugars are natural. So that would be a better choice. Does that make sense? That way you can see how much is added, how much is natural. Does that make sense? Feel free to unmute if you have questions. I want to make sure everyone's clear. Okay. All right. Cool. So I know this is a little bit small, but there's a lot of different names for sugar. So I just wanted to put that out there. It doesn't always just say sugar on the ingredient list. It'll say all of these things, and all of these mean sugar. So things like with anything with the end ose, like fructose, lactose, glucose, that's all sugar. Syrups, like high fructose corn syrup, that would be a sugar. Honey, molasses, maple syrup. You can see all of the different things there, but just realizing that when you're seeing these on the ingredient list, that is still sugar and we still process it in the same way and we still want to reduce it. Okay? All right. So now that we're talking about sugar and how we need to reduce it and what the recommendations are, let's talk about like how to actually do it. Okay, so here are some tips. So first one is cutting back on the sugar you add to tea, coffee, cereal, all of that. So an example would be, I like this like instant coffee in the morning. That's like what I drink almost every day. And I noticed one day it had quite a bit of sugar in it. And so the serving size, I was putting 2 tablespoons every day. And so gradually I started decreasing it. And now I'm only putting 1 tablespoon in. So I'm having, you know, a lot less sugar just because I gradually made the decrease. So you can do the same. If you're putting so much creamer or so much sugar in your tea or coffee, gradually decreasing it so you're where you want to be. So that's an easy way to decrease the amount of sugar. All right. Also, we talked about how the majority of our sugars are coming from sugar sweetened beverages. So that is a very huge way where you can reduce your sugars. So things like, you know, Starbucks, sports drinks, sodas, juices, cutting back on those. And again, we'll have an activity to show us later. Also, when baking, reducing the amount of added sugar in the recipe. So surprisingly, you can cut the sugar in many recipes by 25% before you notice the change. So try doing that. That's an easy way you might not even notice to reduce the sugar. And for you and your family who are eating that. And then replacing sugar with fruit, which is naturally sweet. So like I said, a lot of us will have the sweet craving. Like I just feel like something sweet, like maybe after dinner, you're feeling like something sweet. And so having fruit on hand and eating some fruit will satisfy that sweet craving, but that's natural sugar. So that's a lot better for you. So I have blueberries as my dessert like almost every night. That's like my favorite. So just making sure you have some fruit or have some, you know, something on hand where you can kind of pull from, and that way you're not tempted to grab the ice cream or, you know, grab a cookie. And then staying hydrated. So oftentimes when we think that we're hungry, we're actually just thirsty. And so next time we talked about like the physical and emotional hunger, the difference there. But next time you're hungry, just grab a glass of water, grab a drink and have that first and see if that satisfies. So a lot of us are not hydrated enough. So that's actually a great thing. And I'm actually going to go ahead and show you guys this. This is what you guys get for coming to today's class. I'm very excited for you. I want one. So pretty much it's a water bottle, and it has, I don't know if you've seen these before, but it has the filter in it. Does anyone know what this is for?
Fruit.
Yeah. So you can like infuse your water with fruit, or you can even put mint or something in here. And that way, hopefully it'll encourage you to drink more water on it. It actually has like little things where you should be at certain times of the day. So hopefully that'll be kind of a great way to stop drinking so much sugar sweetened beverages and focus on more water. All right, so I'll send these to your child's classroom and we'll get these to you. Also reading labels. So I talked about, this is looking at the visual on this slide, this is what the labels look like now. So it'll have sugars, and then right under it, it'll have added sugars. So in this visual, it shows us that there's 1 sugar, but added sugars, there's 0. So what does that tell us? Anyone know?
There is no added sugar?
Right, yeah, all of the 1 gram of sugar is natural. So that would be a pretty good thing to choose. There's no added sugar. So we're looking for like 0 added sugar or very close to 0. We want as little as possible of added sugars, okay? So when you're like comparing 2 products and trying to decide which one you want, look at the added sugars and choose the one with less. That's a great way to do it, all right? So reading labels, try to add more seasonings, spices, extracts to your recipes for flavor rather than sugar or salt. Removing the temptation is a good one. The example I like to use is I grew up eating ice cream every day, and that's my favorite thing, and that is the most tempting thing for me. So I don't buy ice cream. I will like go out and get ice cream. It's more for a special occasion, but I really try not to buy ice cream and have it at my house because I know if I have it, I'll eat it. So that might be just something to try, you know, buying something less if you're really struggling having it around because you'll know you'll eat it. Or like if you're in the grocery store, not going down the aisles that you know you're going to be tempted by, like the chip aisle or the soda. And then replacing flavored dairy products with plain. So this is a really easy way to do it. We talked about the sugar difference between vanilla almond milk and unsweetened. Also, when you're looking for yogurt, look for plain yogurt instead of flavored yogurt. And then you can sweeten it yourself. So you can add honey or you can add fresh fruit and sweeten it yourself that way. But that is a really great way to cut down on the sugar because we saw how much sugar yogurt has. And then have sit down family meals. So it's easy to overindulge and to eat snack foods when the focus isn't on the food, like if you're eating in front of the TV or if you're working and eating. So having like sit down family meals where you're focused on the food will make it so you're hopefully eating, you know, the correct portion size, and it'll just be a good time for you and your family to bond and just talk about the day. So that's something I'd recommend for a lot of different reasons.
With the
Yeah.
yogurt and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times they have like it's hard to find full fat yogurt. Would you say to get the full fat as opposed to the 1% fat because there's more sugar in the 1% fat? Or is that just like a personal choice? You want to pick which one you want?
Yeah, I would choose the low fat. That's what's recommended by My Plate. So My Plate says to use low fat dairy. So pretty much kids 2 and under are really the only age group where we're recommending like whole milk and whole fat things. So for us adults, choosing low fat is better. And there's definitely like low fat plain yogurts. That's what I buy, low fat plain yogurt.
Yeah, I've searched for the whole fat because I don't like the taste of the other stuff.
Oh, you like the thicker?
I'd rather have more fat than the more sugar because it keeps
Yeah.
me fuller. But I didn't know
Okay.
like
Yeah.
with the kids if it was different. I usually make yogurt, so I guess it doesn't matter. But
Oh, cool. Yeah. Yeah. Well, another thing to do is to try Greek yogurt. Greek yogurt actually has more protein. So if you're, you know, trying to up the protein rather than up the fat. So if you don't mind the thicker, you
yeah, I
know,
like that.
yogurts, then yeah, then Greek yogurt would be a good thing to choose. And they have plain Greek yogurt. So that would be
Yeah,
like a great choice.
I just
Yeah.
know like I don't like all the added sugar when I get the reduced fat, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it shouldn't always be that way where lower fat means higher sugar. So just comparing products and looking on the nutrition label because you should be able to find low fat options that are also low in sugar. And there's actually even like I think it's called like 2 gram or something. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but it's a yogurt that has 2 grams of sugar, like all of them do. So there's actually, you know, certain products that are really tailoring towards people who are trying to lower their sugar.
Okay. I'm
So
also, not trying to lower my wallet too much, and that's where that gets tricky.
yes, definitely. Yes, I always buy store brands. And so like I know at King Supers I buy the Kroger low fat plain yogurt in just the big tub, and then I make my yogurt parfait, so I put some fresh fruit on there and put some granola on there, and that's a really great breakfast and snack. So yeah, you can do it in a cheap way. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for that. Okay, so I just wanted to mention this because high stress and cortisol, which is our stress hormone that is released when we're under stress, that's actually shown to lead to sugar cravings. So finding ways to alleviate stress in healthier ways rather than turning to food is really important. Because I know when I'm stressed, I eat worse because I'm craving it, and we can see scientifically that makes sense. But choosing, you know, figuring out what works for you to lower your stress that is not food related is something important when we're talking about lowering your sugar. Also, keeping a food diary. Like I said, I kind of know about myself, like what times of day that I tend to get tired or I tend to be bored and I tend to snack. Like I was saying, like 3 to 4 p.m., I tend to crave something sweet. So even just doing this for a day and kind of figuring out like your routines and making sure that when you want something, you have something healthy available. It's like when I'm at work and like I feel like eating, I make sure I have like a healthy snack with me. Or like if you're at home and you're craving something sweet, make sure that you have fruit on hand. Like make sure you have what you need when something, so you're not giving into the temptations. So just understanding, you know, the correlation between your food and the mood you're in. So I wanted to delve into this a bit, just kind of, we could talk about this for a long time, but I just wanted to kind of go over the broad overview about artificial sweeteners and sugar substitutes. So first wanted to say, when something is labeled as sugar-free, that does not mean it is sugar-free. And the reason is because something had to take the place of the sugar that was in there. And that is going to be an artificial sweetener, right? So really, when you're choosing something sugar-free, you're choosing an artificial sweetener. So I just wanted to go over some stuff about that. Artificial sweeteners are a lot times sweeter than sugar. And so they actually increase our tolerance for sweeter foods. So that's something negative about it. They're popular because they usually don't have any calories. So these may be a better choice for people who have diabetes because it won't peak your blood sugar level, or for weight management. But I do want to say though, artificial sweeteners still affect our bodies. So just because you're choosing sugar-free options doesn't mean you should be eating more just because you're eating sugar-free options. Does that make sense? We still want to be aware that we're having those in our diet because they still affect us. So they don't offer the same health benefits. I said this before, but we want to have whole foods like fruit and vegetables because those contain the natural sugars, and those contain all of the other fiber, water, proteins that are important to maintain a healthy diet. All right. So, you know, it's a personal choice, but just realizing that just because you're having something sugar-free doesn't necessarily make it healthier. All right. Let's talk about some action steps. We want to keep it positive. So rather, like I said, I'm not about eliminating things because that is not realistic. That's not something you can sustain. So instead, thinking about what you can eat more of. Like these are the things I need to eat more of. I need to be eating more whole fruits and vegetables rather than things you need to be eliminating or eating less of. So keeping a positive mindset, encouraging more and better sleep, being a good role model for your significant other, for your kids, for your friends, knowing your temptations, like I said. So if something's really tempting, trying not to buy it as often. Identifying trigger foods and triggers in the environment. So if you know that you're going to a gathering where there's going to be a lot of desserts, knowing that ahead of time and, you know, letting yourself have one of the things rather than multiple. Packing your lunch is a great way because when we eat out or when we get fast food, those tend to be higher in sugar and fat. So packing your own lunch is a great way to lower your sugar. And then you don't have to eliminate all treats, like I said. So diets are temporary. And when we're talking about diets, a lot of nutritionists would not recommend diets because it's not something you can sustain. When you're making lifestyle changes, you want it to be something that you can sustain for a long period of time. Because when you're on a diet and then right when you get off the diet, you're going to gain the weight back. And so when you're thinking about it that way, choose eating habits that are realistic, something that you can sustain for a long period of time, and making sure your goals are realistic too. So if you're, you know, and we'll go through SMART goals on the next slide, but if they're not realistic, then they're not going to happen. So making sure that it's actually something that you feel like you can accomplish. You should be flexible with yourself. So if your goal is to eat, you know, less sugar and you had a week where you did not and you're feeling down about that, then realizing that missteps are a part of the process and that you'll get yourself back on track and not letting yourself, you know, stop your lifestyle change just because you're not at the place you want to be. And then tell others so they can keep you accountable. So tell, your significant other, tell your friends so they can talk to you about it. They can ask you how it's going. It'll help keep you accountable. So has anyone heard of a SMART goal before? Yeah. So pretty much, this is what a SMART goal means. So the S stands for specific, M for measurable, A for attainable, R for realistic, and T for time bound. And a SMART goal helps us make our goal all of these things, because I have an example here. So we're going to talk about which one is better. So the first goal I have is I want to lose weight by drinking less soda. All right. That's very broad. It's not very specific. We don't really know like how much less soda. Is it just soda or is it other beverages? It's very, very broad, and goals that are really broad are less likely to happen. So there's that one, or there's the other option. I will drink 1 cup of water for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 1 month. Is that better? Yes, that's a lot better. And it's because you want a goal that you can check off at the end of the day if you did it or didn't do it. It needs to be that specific where you can say, yes, I did, or no, I didn't. So this is very specific that you're going to drink 1 cup of water. It shows the exact amount at all the meals for 1 month. So I think that's a great goal. So I just want to give you a couple minutes. I would love for you all to write down or put on your phone, if you don't have a pen and paper, a SMART goal that's, sugar related, that you can have. It has been shown that if you write down your goal, if you type your goal, it's more likely to happen. And that way you can have it and you can work towards it. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes. Let me know if you have questions and if I can help you out. And then I'll have a couple of you share. So it could be like drinking more water. It could be eating out less. It could be, trying not to have your high sugar coffee, like, every day, changing it to 3 times a week. It could be more exercise, trying to have more family dinners. And feel free to share if you already came up with something.
For us, I think we're.
Oh, I can't hear you.
Are you hearing me now?
Now I can hear you. Yeah.
Artificial sweeteners. Because I feel like we do make the excuse a lot that if it's sugar free, if it says sugar free, then we eat it. And
yeah.
So I think that's going to be something we're going to work on.
Yeah, just being aware of those. Yeah. I love that goal. That's great. Anyone else want to share?
I was thinking about maybe replacing like one of my weekly candy binges with just a pack of gum.
There you go.
Because I just like
that.
chewing.
Yeah. Yep.
So.
That's great. Yeah, I love that. Anyone else? If you say it, you might be more likely to do it. And this is actually my SMART goal, by the way.
Yo tengo una
drinking 1 cup
pregunta.
of water. Yeah. Go ahead.
Por ejemplo, nosotros estamos acostumbrados siempre en la noche a cenar como un vaso de leche con ya sea unas galletas o un pedazo de pan. Como qué otra cosa pudiera darles como a mis niños para cenar.
So Francis, if you could just type that to me in the chat, that way I can give some feedback. That would be awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Maria. Anyone else?
Well, me.
Yeah.
I'm struggling with drinking water. I think I'm gonna like doing like at least like having, I think what they recommend is like having 8 glasses of water.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that
Yeah.
one be my smart goal, like per day, so that way I can um be checking if I reach my goal.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's something that you can easily say if you did or didn't do. And hopefully this will help, having this, around. And I'll actually be emailing you guys after today's class with a recipe for how to sweeten your water with fruit. And so hopefully that's something you can try when you get your water bottle, and just some handouts about sugar. That way, you have kind of the main takeaways from today. So I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Because usually, yeah, thank you. Because usually it's like really hard, like to drink just water alone. So
Yeah.
for me, I took another class like about like changing or making like better like options, and they told me like about the, I don't know, the ones that they sell. I forgot the name. They're like little
Like drink powders.
yes, those.
Yeah.
And then you use it. They said that it is less it's sucralose, I think, what they use on that.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's better than then just drinking the regular juices that they sell at the store. So
Yeah.
I changed that, so I'm not buying juices anymore. But I don't really want to like have that habit, because I have like conditions they on my family are like pre diabetic, like my mom, my grandma. So
Okay.
so it's like I'm trying to do my best on cutting like on sugars, because I don't usually eat sugar, but I eat stuff that convert into sugar, like a little rice, a little pasta.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that kind of stuff. And it's just like, and it's so hard.
It is. It is. And that's why we have, this should show you that you're not alone. Class was made because a lot of people had that same difficulty. So same with me. But that's a great point that you made, that carb is sugar, right? Carb is the overall umbrella that sugar falls under. So that's a really good point. As far as, the drink mixes, I would say if it helps you drink more water, that's a great place to start. And then eventually getting to the just water, or, sweetened water. But yeah, I think that is a better option than doing the sugar sweetened beverages, to kind of, like I said, gradual changes, right?
Yeah, I like to actually drink more water, because you need to be hydrated. So the whole entire day, like it helps with your skin, help like with the circulation and other organs and other stuff. So yeah. I just want to.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you everyone for sharing. That was great. So hopefully keep that SMART goal. It's great if maybe you can type it into your phone, let your friends and family know about it so they can help keep you accountable. And, let me know too. You have my email. Let me know how it goes and how I can help you with that. So here are some, this is just to show you. So actually, you know what we're going to do before we go into that? We're going to do an activity to show you. We talked about sugar sweetened beverages and how they have a lot of sugar, but it's kind of hard to visualize, right? And so we have a little activity. I have a couple of different drinks. So here are the ones I have. This is Mountain Dew, Powerade. We have some sweet tea. We have some Starbucks Frappuccino, the vanilla. And then lastly, we have some apple juice, all right? So what I would like for you all to do as a group, so help each other, is I would love for you to rate what you think has the highest to the lowest amount of sugar. Okay, and then we'll go over and see how close you were. So I'm gonna put all these here so you can see all of them together. So again, apple juice, tea, we have our coffee, our sports drink, and our Mountain Dew. So what do we think has the most?
Either the Mountain Dew or probably the Starbucks Frappuccino. and then Mountain
Okay.
Dew.
My
Does
heart
anyone
really
agree,
wants to be
disagree?
I would think the sweet tea, but maybe that's just how I make my sweet tea.
Yeah. Well, so we have these three are in the running for first. Any other opinions?
I think the Frappuccino and the sweet.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and give you the first one. The one that has the most amount of sugar by a lot is our Mountain Dew. So I did choose, this is like one of the worst sodas, but soda has a lot of sugar. And just to show you, so you can visualize how much sugar is in your Mountain Dew, here are all of the sugar. I don't know if I can get it all in one shot. That's a lot, right? And so the reason that it's not in this form in the soda, it's in the syrup form. So if you look on the ingredients list, the second ingredient says high fructose corn syrup. So like I said, there's a lot of different names for sugar. That's the form it's in most of our sodas and our drinks. All right, so this many sugars. Is that easier to visualize? Rather than, so total, that is 77 grams. And just like I showed you, this might be too hard to see, but it says total sugars, 77 grams. And then right under it, it says added sugars, 77 grams. So that tells us all of the sugar is added, right? None of it is natural in our Mountain Dew. All right, let's go. What do we think is next? One of these?
Coffee?
Yeah, the Starbucks.
Coffee. Okay, so this actually might be a little surprising to you guys. Our second one with the most added sugar is actually our Powerade. Powerade, Gatorade sports drinks are really meant to be like for exercise for the electrolytes and stuff, but they have a lot of added sugar. So not the best option. So just so you can see, here's our added sugar in that. All right. All right. Number 3. Everyone was saying the Starbucks. Is that what we still think? All right, well, I'll help you out. Our third most sugar item is our sweet tea. Sweet tea has a lot of sugar. This one has 48 grams of sugar. So we talked about how our recommended maximum per day is 25. So this kind of shows how you can have all your added sugar from one thing very easily. So here's our sugar in that. Next is our Starbucks. And just because it's fourth on the list doesn't mean it's healthy, but this is our added sugars in that. So those have a lot of sugar as well. This one has 46 grams. So not too far off behind the tea, just 2 grams. And then lastly is our apple juice. And here's the amount of sugar in that. All right, so a great way for your kids, if you're trying to get them to drink more water or, less juices. When I was a kid, I drank way too much juice. Trying to do small steps like we were talking about. So maybe doing half juice, half water and diluting it a bit is a great way to start until you are at almost all water, but also choosing 100% juice options. Because that is, anything with added sugar is a sugar sweetened beverage. So any comments about that? No? All right. Well, I hope that you all learned something. Let's see how we're doing on time. We have about 10 more minutes. I want to make sure we have time for questions. But before we do that, just to make sure you all get credit for coming, we have just a quick post test. Same questions as always. I think you've almost all been in a class before, but again, as normal, if you wouldn't mind writing your answers in the chat, that way I can say that you were here. So first question, after taking this class, will you usually or always consider health when choosing groceries? So specifically about this class, next time you go grocery shopping, are you going to consider sugar and in what you buy? Yes or no? And then after taking this class, will you commit to choosing more healthy recipes at home? So maybe ones that include less sugar or changing. We talked about when we're baking, cutting down on the sugar. So maybe trying that too. So making sure you answer both yes, yes, no, no, yes, no. Go ahead and write those in the chat. I'm gonna go ahead and keep this up for a second. I know it's great. I have seen a lot of familiar faces. I'd love to see you all in more classes. These are the ones that are coming up next month. Cooking Matters actually starts at the end of this month. We have room in all of these still. So you have my email. So now you can just email me whenever you want to attend more. The Cooking Matters series is 7 weeks. It's actually taught by Karen Scher, so not me, but it is a great series. And you actually don't have to attend the entire 7 weeks. If there's certain classes you want to attend and certain ones you don't, they actually have you register for each separately. So just a little info about that. But yeah, Nutrition 101 is as it sounds. We're just a broad overview of my plate, food labels, food groups, all of that. And then Parents in the Kitchen is actually a hands-on cooking class. So you have kids in the kitchen. This is one just for you, and we'll be actually in the kitchen making some stuff. So, all right, now I'm going to open it up for questions.
This isn't a question, but this is extra incentive if you want to cut sugar while baking. We are high altitude, and it's actually a suggestion to cut some of the sugar while you're baking things like cookies and sometimes cake, because it'll actually burn your cake or your cookies because the sugar is just the difference in altitude. So there's a fun fact in case anybody needs a little bit more motivation.
That's great. Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone want to share something that's worked for them? Has anyone tried cutting sugar in the past and it didn't work? What were your obstacles?
This might sound goofy to some people, but I actually use less sugar when I get like the coffee mate creamer than when I make my coffee on my own, like with milk and sugar at home. And I also do whole milk everything because I think 1% tastes like water. So I use a lot less of everything by just using the coffee creamer.
Yeah, finding things that work for you. That's great. Awesome. Anyone else? All right. Well, I'm going to stay on. So if you have specific questions, yeah, go ahead.
If we have kids that need to drink juice occasionally for medical reasons, you know, like constipation and stuff like that, should we just focus more on like cutting sugar out throughout the day then? Because my son is not going to take Miralax unless he has like a very large container of Gatorade to take it in, and I don't blame him.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah, if you feel like, I guess if that's the day that your child needs to have that in order to get the medication down, yeah, choosing to cut sugar in the food or the snacks that they're eating that day. Also, you can dilute the Gatorade just like you can with juice, or choosing the powders.
He's not going to go. No, and you know what? I don't blame him at all. At all. It's a nasty ordeal.
Yeah, just on those days, focusing on other ways that you can cut back on sugar rather than the drinks. That's what I would recommend.
Like, I guess just up in their fiber for everything else.
Yeah, fiber's a great thing because it keeps them full. And you know, a lot of our snack foods are the things to focus on because they're highly processed and they're usually high in sugar and fat. So like we talked about comparing products when you're looking at your granola bars or when you're looking at your crackers, looking at the nutrition facts label and comparing the sugar and choosing the one with the lower amount of added sugar. So yeah, and it's actually shown that sugars that are both high in fat and sugar tend to be the most addictive. The ones that have both. So just a little fun fact there. Just be aware of those specifically, but and I know, I think it was Nicole or someone had a question about specific snacks. And so I know I didn't go over that a lot, but if you have specific questions, feel free to let me know. Also, like I said, I have that healthy snacking class coming up. I don't have a date set yet, but in that we'll actually make some healthy snacks together. And so I would really recommend that class for you and for anyone who wants to learn about that. Okay, well, I'm gonna stay on if you have, you know, if you wanna ask me something one-on-one, but I'll let you all go if you're done. So thank you all for coming and I'll see you at the next class.
Thanks,
guys. Thanks. Oh, yeah. I can't. No, I can't. But I did not check the chat. Oh, okay, wait. Let me see.
Miss Kelsey, the interpreter has a question for you.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I'm looking at the chat right now.